James Cargo Motorcycle Shipping sponsors Under the Visor.
Hello, my name's Luke Gelmi. I'm the author of the Oblivious trilogy of the adventure through Africa on the most inappropriate motorbike possible, a Royal Enfield. Motorcycles was first, and it segued off into travel. So I started riding motorbikes back in Australia. I bought a F800 GS, the BMW of all bikes, and my love for traveling really changed when I took a 2-week trip to India. We hired Royal Enfields there, and we went touring through the Himalayas, and it was stunning. It was I highly recommend it for anyone who wants to kind of do a shallow dive on some traveling adventure. It's safe, it's practical. There's lots of tour guides who do it, and the Royal Enfields are amazing. That's where I really fell in love with the Enfield for the first time, despite having the dream machine back home, the Beamer. Yeah, so I quit my job, and it was a good job, a job that I liked. I didn't hate it, but I kind of felt like at my age, that was the time for adventure. Like, the time for adventure was now, and if I didn't do it, it was now or never. So I quit my job, moved to London, just kind of left everything behind in Australia, and bought the Royal Enfield there. I do, and I think that was really important. I think if I had have taken the BMW, I wouldn't have. The BMW is just too German. It's so perfect and infallible, and it just never makes any mistakes, and it doesn't really have any personable qualities. It's hard to fall in love with a GS, but this machine, every day I'd wake up and see it. Even towards the end of the trip, you'd see it and you'd look at it and you'd still smile. Well, put it this way: I came out of the dealership and I was just absolutely euphoric. I was euphorically happy. And I've about 200 kilometers down the road, so about 100, what would that be, 100 and something miles down the road, the red engine warning light has popped up on the dash saying you've got a problem. And I lost all power, just all power gone. And the bike starts winding itself down to a stop. And then as it's just about to conk out, I get power back again. And I called the dealership and I'm like, what the bloody hell is that? Like, this is a brand new motorcycle right out of the factory. How can this be happening? And they were like, oh, it's fine. It'll just be something electrical. It happens from time to time. When you come in on the first service, we'll fix it up then. And after that, it was almost bulletproof. He was crazy. He'd done the same thing that I'd done, which is kind of quitting life and move and just getting a one-way ticket somewhere. But he'd decided to fly straight into Cape Town or Johannesburg. He flew straight into South Africa, and he hitchhiked up the east coast of Africa. And I thought that you just couldn't do that. And so meeting him in Barcelona, he's got stories about how he got deported out of Ethiopia into Yemen and then nearly got carjacked while he was in Yemen. While he was in the Democratic Republic of Congo, he got, what was it? He got typhoid and malaria at the same time and should have died, except they luckily found him a hospital before he carked it. And he's made his way all the way up the east coast of Africa, all through the Middle East, and then over into Europe, and then finally to Spain, just with hitchhiking. And we shared stories over a few beers, and by the end of it, I was like, what are you doing next? And he said, I was thinking of going down to West Africa for a bit. And I said, how are you going to do that? And he goes, oh, I was just, going to hitchhike. And I'm like, don't hitchhike, just come with me. Yeah, I'm not a writer. I never really have been. When I started the trip, I started taking a journal down, and early on it was very mundane stuff, like super mundane, but like a daily kind of thing. Like, I went and got fish and chips today, and that would be my diary entry. And then by the time I got like deep into Africa, the entries were getting massive. Like, I was writing down everything, and it quickly turned into the favorite part of my day was kind of writing it all down. And at the same time I was doing that, I was writing emails back home to family. And what tipped me over the line was when a friend of it, someone I didn't know, so it was someone at arm's length, had received the email through a bunch of forwarding and got in touch with me directly saying, if for the next email that you have, can you please send it to me directly, because we love it. I sit with my family around the dinner table and we read it out while we eat dinner. And I'm like, well, that's really weird, and thank you, and I will, but what? It was just weird, and that it was at that point where I kind of started thinking maybe I've got something here, maybe. Well, the book really writes itself. Like I am nothing special. The book, the the stuff that went on, it writes itself. But I've really enjoyed writing the book, and it's taken a fair while to do it. My whole family's wondering, when are you going to have the book? When are you going to have the book? And it ended up being enormous, and it ended up being 3 times as big as it should have been. So I ended up turning it into a trilogy. So interestingly enough, the first book is available fully polished, and it's published, and it's available for free right now. So you can get your hands on it online for free at a website called obliviousthebook.com. Anyone can get that, and it works beautifully on, especially on tablets and mobile phones, and it works really well on Kindle too. But the cool thing is there's 50 photos in it, so it's like a photo book slash a proper book. And I've given it to a lot of people who don't like reading books and don't read books at all, and they've loved it. They've like my dad's never read a book in his entire life. Sorry, Dad, but you've never read a book in your entire life. And he read the book in a couple of days. He just chewed through it, and he said, it's not because you're my son. This is genuinely good stuff. So if you don't like reading books, this is the book for you, I think. If you want to read about an African adventure, I've loved doing it. I've loved doing it, and it's cheap for me to do it. It's cheap for me to be able to do it for free, and I'm happy to do that. I'm happy that people are going to be reading it, and maybe that other people who are in a similar situation to me, like working at a desk job that they might even be happy in, but they're not sure. They're thinking that there might be something more to life, that they might read the book and then decide to throw it all in themselves and go do something crazy, go do something that they really want to do while they still can. So it kicks off in London, and then I end up in Barcelona smashing my 2 front teeth out. And then I meet a really nice Canadian girl who, in spite of my 2 smashed out teeth, she seemed to like me anyway. So moving on, jumping the Gibraltar Strait over into Morocco, met the Canadian girl again, good times. Then flying down the coast to Dakar, got robbed, got all of my stuff stolen, and then had to, while I was waiting to have all my stuff shipped back in from Australia, got brutally food poisoned, just sick for days. Onwards to Guinea-Bissau, I was on a spoiler alert, I was on a boat heading out to an island that was going to take 4 hours, and 1 hour in, I got sick on a boat with no toilets. So you join the dots on how that story ends. Do you reckon you'd be able to last 3 hours? Jesus Christ. Anyway, so onwards to Guinea, where I went all through the outback of Guinea, trying to chase a bloke who was riding on a KTM. That was tough going. Through Sierra Leone, getting arrested by riot police in Liberia, onwards to Cote d'Ivoire, which was kind of in a rebellion at that time, and then Togo, Benin, through Nigeria into Cameroon. Got scared the shit out of by a gorilla in Gabon, nearly died in the Congos, and then thought I was going out of my mind by the time I got to South Africa to wrap the whole thing up. my mate said reading it, he goes, because he proofed it for me. He goes, I'm really confused because it seems like all that's happening is that you're going from one thing to another thing to another thing and another thing, and then you say that you're having the time of your life, and I can't reconcile those two. Like, I don't see that. Like, he goes, yeah, that you're having all this stuff happen and it's a fucking nightmare, and then but then you kind of get this thunderbolt of something incredible happening, like something amazing that you rode across that you didn't really expect at all, and it makes up for all the so I've got an Instagram profile and a Facebook profile which is just generally blogging, which can lead people off into where they can get the book. So the book itself is on obliviousthebook.com, and you can see the blog posts at shotsfromthebar.com, or you can look that up at Shots from the Bar on Instagram or Facebook.
James Cargo Motorcycle Shipping sponsors Under the Visor.